Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you who haven't seen this before, this is where I take 10 questions from the subscribers that are part of the Star Citizen community and answer them to the best of my abilities. The subscribers are a subset of our community and contribute money every month to enable us to do all our enhanced community content, so thank you very much for that. So that allows this show and Around the Verse and all the extra stuff like Reverse the Verse and Bug Smashers, as well as this monthly magazine we do called Jump Point, which is usually 50 to 70 pages of behind-the-scenes material about us building and designing ships, various sort of game design, sort of background and decisions. There's lore, talking about the various parts of the Star Citizen universe, as well as fiction that we have in every magazine issue. So I'd recommend checking it out. It's actually pretty cool. David Reedeemer sort of runs that as the editor and collates and brings stuff together from the teams all around the world working on Star Citizen. So thanks to subscribers. It enables us to do a whole bunch of enhanced community content, which I think is vital for us because we're constantly sharing everything we're working on, which is a lot. So, and it allows me to do this. So I answer the 10 questions as best as I can. Sometimes it causes concern threads, but that's the nature of a crowd-funded and crowd-developed game. So here we go. First question comes from Jay Mojo, who asks, will we have the option to turn all of the lights off in a ship? Say the staff area, if we get pirates or other players try and take over the ship, can we shut the lights out and pull on night vision of some kind as countermeasures to survive/kill them? So the answer is yes. This is one of the big things that we keep talking about item system 2.0, which is really sort of a refactoring of the items and the entity system, and will fold across into how the characters of what we call players inside the code and the vehicles will all function. It's to allow a lot more sort of functionality and control. So right now on the ships, especially on the multi-crew ships, a lot of the functionality isn't there because we have a lot of the old items and we're just sort of moving over to new ones and they're not fully sort of implemented in there. So we're sort of in this halfway state, and each new release we add a bit more of the code, although we don't necessarily change the items themselves over to using the new code yet. But when we have enough of the base of the code in, we'll just sort of do a pass on all the items and they will move over to the item 2.0 functionality, which will allow a lot more. So for instance, in ships on multi-crew, seats, you'll be able, or stations, you'll be able to sort of designate control between different seats over different things, like pass the control of a turret to another seat, have different seats, have control over things like engineering, like power distribution and stuff like that, shields management, and also just sort of ship systems. So, some stuff that we've worked on, there's some pretty cool prototype stuff. I think at some point we're going to be showing it, not necessarily in this session, but showing some of the prototype stuff that sort of allows you to, say, go to a control center and turn off lights in sections, or lock down doors, or turn off power, or potentially even turn off the gravity generator. There's going to be a lot of tools for people on ships, especially the bigger ships, to be able to sort of micromanage the systems internally, which you could potentially use to sort of slow down or thwart people boarding. Vice versa, the other side of it is, people trying to take over a ship could potentially cause havoc or damage by cutting, power nodes, or getting access to a control room and then shutting other people in. All this is pretty cool. Of course, certain levels of control will have certain security access, and maybe that security access has to come with a card or something else. But all that functionality comes with item 2.0, and all the items are connected via pipes. So I think we've talked about the pipe concept, where power goes between items, or items will sort of vent heat and that will go into the pipe system, and then you'll have to get rid of that heat, or else it will start to back into the items and damage them. But we have other things like sort of data or CPU power. So for instance, if you have a targeting computer and it's trying to resolve targets, and if it's connected to, say, a single core computer, well, it only gets so many data cycles from the CPU, and so maybe it takes 5 seconds or 6 seconds to resolve the target, whereas if you had a dual core CPU, so you have your avionics module and you have 2 processors in 2 of the slots, then potentially that could be maybe 3 seconds to resolve the target. So there'll be sort of all sorts of stuff in terms of how you configure ships and how we build out and configure ships that will allow a lot of sort of nuance and control. And then again, if players get in there or subsystems get damaged during combat, what's cool is because, each one of these items needs power, for instance, to operate, and sometimes needs other things. Like I was saying, it needs, say, CPU cycles, or perhaps it needs, like for instance, if you have a life support, like you're on a ship, well, we have like an oxygen pipe, and that would come from the life support unit. And if, say, someone destroyed the life support unit, there'll be no oxygen coming in. Therefore, you better put on a spacesuit, because pretty soon you would start to asphyxiate. So it's all systematic. So if damage happens to the bigger ships, as bits blow up on the outside, there'll be sort of radial explosions, and that potentially could hit items a little further in, and then those items maybe themselves could, be damaged or explode, and they could hit further ones. And so you'd sort of have a cascade of damage, and it could affect, cut out a power node. So like something that would definitely happen on a bigger ship is that, you have the power plant, and then power is distributed via nodes to, turrets and various systems, lights, whatever, around the ship. And, obviously if the power plant goes, then you're in trouble. But, even if like there's a damage to the side of, the one side of your ship, say the starboard side or something like that, and takes out one of the power nodes there, then anything after that power node will be out of power. Now, there could be gameplay where you would go to fix up the power node to reconnect the power. On the bigger ships, there may be alternate ways, maybe more than sort of one power node route, and you could go to the systems management and reroute the power from one node to another node to get power going back to the rear turret or whatever else like that. So all that functionality is going to be incredibly cool, have a massive amount of sort of gameplay potential, make crewing and using the bigger ships, the multi-crew ships on up to sort of the cap ships that we've got, a huge fun experience. So that's kind of some of the stuff that we're the most excited by in terms of sort of the space adventure and combat side. I think you haven't really seen that kind of level of stuff in the game before, and it is very much like the sci-fi movie, running around on the Enterprise, and Scotty's trying to fix up the warp drive and all the rest of the stuff. So we'll definitely have a lot of that, and part of it will be being able to turn off the lights or shut down doors and do that sort of stuff. Okay, so the next question comes from Sinoko, who says, are there any plans for maintaining individual engine controls or engine stress, such as if you push your engines too hard or one fails, you can turn up, down the power or fuel mixture? Yes, there definitely will be, kind of along the same lines of all the kind of item 2.0 stuff that I was just describing. The sort of the bigger ships will allow the engineer to have more control over various items or components of the ship, one of which could be the engines. And there'll be the potential to sort of try to push more power out of it. We may even sell sort of like engine overclocking style modules that you can put in for like a racer ship or something. And it's always a trade-off, putting a bit more fuel or power into it potentially could, increase the heat output, but maybe also kind of damage the ship. So we're going to have this whole overclocking style setup that we've talked about for weapons, and it would be things for like engines and thrusters too. And that's definitely on the bigger ships, where the engineer comes in and they're sort of tweaking and doing that and adjusting it based on what they're sort of seeing on the feedback loops. And I think it will be pretty cool. So those are all things that we're doing. That's all why we're trying to make the components of basically what we call items, but they're sort of components. And by the way, they're not just for spaceships. They can be on a vehicle like a rover or something, or a buggy. On players, like if you're running around in your armor suit, then you'll essentially be, you'll have your armor suit on, and it'll have a power plant on the back to power it, for instance, and a little life support item on the back. And then if you've got EVA, you'll have an EVA item attached to you. So players are sort of set up the same way we set ships up. Weapons, guns are the same. The ammo magazine is an item that plugs into the gun item, so to speak. If you wanted to put a scope on top, that plugs in. A silencer would plug on the front. So all uses the same sort of interconnected, what we call, items and item ports. Although really I kind of sort of say it's entity 2.0 rather than item 2.0, because really this is the paradigm that works for everything that we have. So it would be, stuff that a player uses, plugs into, stuff that the spaceship uses, stuff that vehicles use. So there you go. Okay, next question comes from Intrepid Corsair, who asks, what is the status of the Reedeemer? Why has it taken longer than any other ship to go from concept to flight ready? Well, I don't think it is the one that's taken the longest to go from concept to flight ready. I think most of the Banu merchantman owners would probably have a bone to pick with you over that one. In the specific case of the Redeemer, what we want to do is, we have Paul the lessee that works for us now, and he was one of the core members of the team that actually built the Redeemer when they won the next great starship. And he's over in Foundry 42, hard at work working on all the ships that we need for Squadron 42, and he's an incredibly talented artist. But we really feel like, if anyone's going to go into the Redeemer and fix it up to the sort of style that we have now for Aegeus and everything else, that he should be the one to do it. And he's already done a fair amount of stuff. I mean, he obviously did the Vanguard. So he was the prime artist doing the Vanguard. So he will definitely do it, but we have to wait for him to finish the Squadron 42 stuff first. All right, next question comes from Belzoff, who asks, with regards to the reputation system, will it end up being more basic, as in good guys and bad guys, follows UEE laws versus breaks UEE laws, or will it be more nuanced? For example, if I'm opening up shop on my Banu merchantman, just mentioned the Banu merchantman in the previous question, and I see a pirate coming at me, I might know that while he breaks UEE laws, he doesn't prey on other lawbreakers. In other words, will the reputation system allow an honor among thieves approach? The reputation system isn't going to be sort of simple and black and white like we have in sort of 2.3, 2.2. In reality, so maybe we have in 2.3 anyway. All our releases are blurring in. We definitely have in 2.3. But in reality, it really is, you have sort of personal reputations, and your organizations that you're members of will have reputations with other organizations and individuals. And so every time you come into contact with an organization or another individual, you sort of start kind of at a neutral status, unless a group, like for instance, if you're a member of the UEE and you meet a Vandal, well, we already know that the Vandal and the UEE are at loggerheads, therefore the Vandal will probably be, going after you. But most of the time, just say players or player groups, the sort of reputation, or kind of whatever you want to call it, alignment in terms of how you are versus the other player, gets tracked. So as you do something negative to them, it will go into sort of negative. You do something positive, go into positive, and we sort of keep a track of everyone you come into contact with, and track those relationships, as well as tracking the organization or the group relationships on the more global level. And of course, we have sort of whatever you want to call them, NPC or game organizations, like the UEE or the Vandal or the Merchants Guild, the Mercenaries Guild, all those kind of things that are sort of, kind of defined by us. But the reputation system will sort of be a combination of your personal reputation with various groups that you come into contact, will be influenced by the groups you're a member of, that you publicly admit to being a member of. And we sort of track it as you do things and go from there. So it'll be fairly nuanced, and it'll allow players to, kind of make their way in the galaxy and decide kind of, who they're aligned with or who they aren't aligned with. And I think it'll be a lot more nuanced than, good guy or bad guy, because in the world of Star Citizen, there really isn't going to be sort of a good guy and bad guy. I mean, just even in the UEA Empire, there's a lot of different factions and interests that want different kinds of things, and you could be aligned with one of them but not the other one, and that doesn't mean you're a bad guy, it just means you're on one side rather than the other one. Next question comes from Creepola, who asks, I had my wings shot off in the baby PU, in brackets, okay, I actually crashed into something and my guns went with them. Will I have to buy new guns every time this happens when the game goes live? So that is a pretty good question. These are all the kind of lovely edge cases that come up with sort of the lifetime insurance or the insurance setup. But generally, if you damage your ship when you're flying out there and you go and you have to go and get it repaired, so you're going to have to pay to repair it. And typically, just like it would be in the real world, if you drive and get your car messed up and the wheel goes and stuff, then you have to pay to get that wheel repaired or whatever. But if depending on what kind of insurance, because don't forget we're also going to sell, besides the basic sort of hull insurance, which is the normal insurance and the lifetime insurance, which covers you from catastrophic loss, there will be additional insurance you could, say, purchase for, say, items or weapons. So if you'd put a custom weapon on your ship and you'd taken out and you got in a fight and it got blown up, if you have the right insurance, then perhaps it will pay out. But that kind of insurance will obviously act a lot like real insurance would. So it's not sort of blind. If you go back and you make claim after claim after claim after claim after claim, of course your rates are going to go up, and at some point they may not want to insure you anymore, because the one thing that we have to juggle on the whole idea of your ship actually being something that you want to hold on to and keep and patch up and repair, and our sort of insurance setup is that we don't want people to abuse the system. You don't want people to just go and destroy, like, oh, look, I've lost a wing, so I'm just going to suicide into a rock now so I can get an insurance claim to get a brand new ship back and not pay for the repair. So we are going to work in systems that will sort of try to watch out for that, and people aren't going to be able to sort of just claim and get a ship instantly back. So there'll be some penalties for going, basically losing your ship, and insurance covers it. But if it starts to happen too long, maybe it takes a while for you to get your next ship. Maybe there's a little extra scrutiny, because what we don't want to do is people use it to abuse the system, which you guys have come up with 1,000 different kind of scenarios and how that can happen. It's one of the good things about sort of having the alpha stage. That's why we're going to do alpha UEC when the shopping and the persistence up there, and a lot of this stuff is that a lot of this kind of dynamics will start to experiment with the functionality of like how the insurance and how you would respawn and all the rest of the stuff during the sort of alpha, mini PU kind of basis. And of course we're going to adjust it as it sort of develops, and that's why we really want to have hundreds of thousands of you playing it, because it's a way better way to test it out and see what works or what doesn't work, compared to just a dev team doing it, because you just don't have enough people and you're sort of set in a certain mindset. And you guys can see it every time we take something to PTU and then even something live. There are bugs or exploits that show up that the dev team never even considered, that the QA team never came across, mostly because we're set on a certain way, and the QA teams, even though it's a pretty big QA team now, there's it's a huge game and a huge universe and lots of stuff to be done. So we will be sort of working on exactly these things, as some of the key game mechanics that sort of I've talked about that I think can be really interesting, but I'm not stupid enough to say it's definitely going to work exactly this way, because you've got to get out there live and play around, and when it's alpha UEC, and we can reset people's accounts, and no one's really lost anything at that point. So hopefully with all your guys' help and playing it, we'll come up with something that is like a really nice balance between making you want to hold on to your stuff and care about your character and care about your ship, and not sillily blow it up and sacrifice it, but also not be the other extreme where it's so frustrating that you have to start from scratch every time you go out and some parrot shoots you up. So those are all things that we will work on together, and that's the beauty of the sort of mini PU cycle that we're doing. Okay, Zitex asked, do you plan on doing a Squadron 42 or Star Citizen studio-wide launch party? Well, I definitely think Squadron 42 coming out, or Star Citizen, being deemed commercial ready, will be very worthy of a studio-wide launch party. That's not really sort of my ballywick, so to speak, so that really will be up to Sandy and Ben, but I'm pretty sure we'd all be quite happy and everyone will be partying a lot, so there you go. Next question comes from Sir Vulpecula, who asks, are there any plans to improve the issue council, either through improved website functionality or designated moderators? So on the issue council, we're constantly looking at ways to make things better. I think, you guys have noticed that we just had the initial council originally, then we sort of now have a sort of bug reporting system, and we're constantly sort of looking at ways to make it a little more efficient. Recently we've sort of we're kind of trying to tier and structure our testing a little more, so we can have some very early testers, because a lot of times we want very targeted testing, which is sort of for, okay, let's do a stress test and we need 24 people in 10 instances all right now at this particular period of time. And of course, not everyone out there in our community is ready or willing to do that, or ready and willing to put up with all the bugs and issues and problems that comes with that. So we're sort of working on like kind of lining up our our testing to be able to sort of do some very targeted, specific testing, some very early testing, as well as sort of like the next stage of testing, which is a wider group, which is that's sort of the normal PTU, where it's 5,000 people, and then we go out to live, which is still really testing, but it's out to all you guys. And also, don't forget, there are going to be some things that we have to test that we absolutely don't want. Even if we're getting you guys to help us, the people that are helping us are going to have to be quiet about them. Like, for instance, if when we start to get people to start to help out with some more expanded Squadron 42 testing, we absolutely don't want anything to leak there. So that's all the reasons why we're sort of building up these different groups of testers to sort of be more efficient that way. And on top of that, it's how to make the issue council better is an ongoing sort of task. So we think it works really. We think it works really well. It can definitely be better, but it's, I think, going to be one of the foundations that long term will make Star Citizen what it will be, because we're having this amazing resource of all you guys hammering on the game, trying all these different crazy things, and so it's it's impossible for our internal tester to cover a whole bunch of the stuff that you guys do. So all the work, blood, sweat, and tears, blue screens of death, crashes that you guys go through now will just make the final product all that much better. So thank you for all that, and yes, we will be trying to make things better on the issue council as we go forward. Okay, next question comes from Moots, who asks, will there be a possibility to show the back view of a ship permanent on a second monitor display? Imagine a Thrustmaster MFD Cougar setup with an 8-inch display behind to show permanently what's going on behind your ship. Really nice thought. The issue with being able to do that is, one, CryEngine's not very good at actually having proper multi-camera views. So in terms of having a camera here and a camera over here, it doesn't really support that. Also, by the way, just to let you know, on a rendering time, you just doubled your rendering time basically, because you render one view and then a second view. So I think short term, we're not going to have sort of secondary camera views. Longer term, it's always something we kind of like, although there is some fundamental structure inside CryEngine that isn't very predisposed to it, that may go away to some extent as we continue to refact the engine, but right now that isn't sort of in the sort of short-term roadmap. The other possibility and the opportunity that we've talked about is potentially, which is not exactly the same, but we talked about having sort of viewer clients that you can basically log into the server and basically see a camera or control a camera. So think of it like a traffic cam or something, and so you can have a different view. And potentially maybe something like that could help out a little bit there, but at the moment we are not planning on having that functionality right there. I do agree that it would be cool. It's more about sort of the core fundamental structure of the engine, which doesn't really support multiple cameras. So there you go. All right, next question comes from Epix, who asks, that's with an X, by the way, have you had any thoughts on the direction CIG will go after Star Citizen is finished? Do you think you could put all that you as a company have learned and developed into creating additional content? Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I think I've said this for quite a long time, but Star Citizen is never going to be finished. I don't think people say EVE is finished or World of Warcraft's finished now. Star Citizen will go on, that universe will go on as long as anyone's out there wanting to play in it, which I'm hoping will be for a long time. Obviously, the games I mentioned have been 10 years plus. So really kind of, what we're doing with Star Citizen is we're sort of working on the game, adding features for an incredibly ambitious design. I don't think there's any other game that's trying to do as much as we're trying to do. So, degree of difficulty 11, not 10. And we'll have what we sort of determine as sort of a minimum viable product feature list for what you would call Star Citizen, the commercial release, which is basically when you say, okay, we've gotten to this point and we still got plans to add a lot more cool stuff and more content and more functionality and more features, which, by the way, includes some of the latest stretch goals we have, because not all of that's meant to be for absolutely right here on the commercial release, but we'll have something that we'll think, okay, yeah, now everyone can play it. It doesn't matter. You can load it up. It plays really well. It's really stable. There's lots of content. There's lots of fun things to do, different professions, lots of places to go. We've got a really good ecosystem. So when we get to that point, that's sort of when we would sort of say, okay, now it's not alpha or it's not beta. It is Star Citizen 1.0. But of course, the team is going to absolutely continue working on it. It's like if you look at World of Warcraft, they continue to add content and features all the time. The same happens on EVE. We will update stuff, so we'll continually update the graphics. We'll add, like I said, new functionality, new content, new systems, coming across additional alien races, all that kind of stuff will be there. So we're going to work on this as long as you guys let us to, or support us doing it, because the world's huge. I mean, there's so many things to do out there. It's the same on Squadron 42. Once we've told the Squadron 42 trilogy, then we're going to move on, and we'll have other stories we'll tell that maybe they're not necessarily a military story. Maybe it's more an adventure, sort of a Han Solo style adventure. And there's, just it's a huge universe. I mean, look what Disney's doing with Star Wars. They've got a whole roadmap of the main ones and the spin-off ones and all the rest of the stuff. I think Star Citizen has it's a huge, interesting universe. We really put a lot of effort into the lore of it. I mean, you see that from the very beginning, that's one of the things that we made foundational. Dave and his team constantly is fleshing out the world in addition to sort of writing stuff for the Squadron series and as well as doing stuff for the PU. And yeah, we want to make this world as livable and breathable, and you guys spend many years of venturing around in it. And I think in today's world, it's not the way it used to be, where it was like, here's a game, then you put it on a shelf, and then you come back to another game a year or 2 years later, and you sort of iterate it, or you have the Grand Theft 3 and 4 and 5 come out. I think with us, we're just live, and we're just continually improving and adding stuff, and more people are having fun and adventuring around. So it's kind of like what we're doing right now, but obviously with more features and more content, better stability, better performance under our belts, and then at a certain point we'll say, yep, ready for the full general public. There you go. So all right, last question comes from Cowchat, spelled Kaochat. We know we're going to have pets later on, so my question is, will you use motion capture on animal, dogs and cats, to have basic motion for pets and alien creatures? Well, I think we probably would do some, animal motion capture. It's always fun. I mean, it seemed to be the best thing in whatever was it, Call of Duty Ghosts? I can't remember which one it was. They had the dog, and they had the swimming fish. But yeah, no, we'll probably do some of that. We'll kind of have fun. I mean, it's a great science fiction trope that everyone's got, like the cat on the spaceship, or their dog, their best friend. And so we'll definitely have them, collect them. We'll have some alien ones too. We're going to have some alien wildlife longer term. So maybe some of those could become a pet, and there's just a lot of fun that we will have with it down the road. Obviously, after we've got some of the more fundamental basic things like trading and mining and escorting and all the rest of the stuff going. But there you go. All right, that is the end of this episode of 10 for the Chairman. Hopefully, my answers were informative. I'd like to thank everyone that subscribes, because, like I said at the top of the show, you guys make it possible for us to do all this, and it's really, really appreciated. I'd like to thank anyone that's backed Star Citizen. I'm always blown away by the continual support. It's great to see, every day, every month, new people are joining the community. We do, essentially no sort of advertising or anything. It's all done by word of mouth. You guys streaming videos, telling your friends about stuff. I mean, obviously we do a fair amount of sharing what we're doing in the game and all the rest of stuff, but it's not what you would call conventional advertising and marketing, because we basically don't spend money on that, because we're sort of at the early stage of development. Star Citizen continues to have people join it, contribute, play around in the universe, give feedback, which is great. Allows us to have this talented team from around the world. We have 4 studios all working on this, all building the dream game, which I think I and all you guys would like to play. And I think I think pretty much all the team that works on it here does. I think there was a Kotaku article that said something like, Star Citizen sounds like what a 5-year-old would dream of if he had no financial constraints. I think that's what it is, but I'll tell you what, we're going to deliver it. So anyway, thank you, and I will talk to you next week. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching 10 for the Chairman. If you guys would like to see more episodes, go here. If you guys would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel and always keep up to date with all our video content, go here. And if you guys would like to watch episodes of Around the Verse, go here please. And I will see you in the verse.